Big thank you to our friends at Dr. V for jumping on board and supporting Dyl Friends. We absolutely love them. Dr. V is a 100% natural energy drink. No jitters, no crash. Just good herbs infused together in a drink of goodness. We love it. And guess what? It's Aussie made and Aussie owned. I've been absolutely flat out lately trying to juggle Dyl Friends, List Cloggers, life, catching up with mates, the Tofu Princess, and everything else in between. And Dr. V helps me stay on task. It helps me get good podcast guests for you, the vocab high, and makes me feel good. So ditch the crap, jump online at drv.com.au and order some Dr. V. When you use the code DYLANFRIENDS, all lowercase at checkout, you get 25% off your order. We absolutely love it. Give it a go. It's also available at Richie's IGAs, independent grocers and Easy Marts around Australia. Let's go.
Jarryd Roughead, welcome to the Dyl Friends podcast. My friend, as big as is huge. It's been a long time in the making.
No, thank you very much, Dyl. It has. I mean, with footy and COVID and everything going on in kids, it's but we're here.
We are, and that's all that matters. You are a very busy man, though. You're everywhere.
I'm not busy. I'm trying to balance life.
Yeah.
Now with 2 kids, Will is 1 in a couple of weeks, Pippa's 3.5, and then going from footy to full-time work, which you don't have as much spare time as what you once had.
Yes, and I do like to say here a lot, we don't work for the man, we are business men.
Correct.
So
Jay-Z.
Yeah, I like that. It suits you well. And how have you been, mate? Obviously busy, as you said, juggling work with the Saints, family, life. Like, what's happening at the moment? What does your week look like?
So I'm good at the moment. We're what are we at? Round 17, 18 of the AFL season. I'm full-time at the Saints, so if I was to give you a business card, it says Football Operations Assistant. Which is a jack of all trades, really. Help out leadership group, learning the business of a footy admin, list management, working with the forwards and working with Big Max King at the moment. So I've got that with footy, and then family life at home, and on the weekends sometimes when we've got a bit of free time, I'll try and have a kick back home as well with my little brother.
Has it shocked you, that transition into not coaching, into football admin, how much work actually goes in behind the scenes? I think like a lot of players that leave the game, and we think we're busy when we play football. I think every footballer thinks they're busy. Then when you leave, you go, fuck, what did I literally do with my life? Like, there was so much time that I didn't do anything.
And players think that coaches have got all this spare time as well, but as soon as they go, there's
coding.
Meeting after meeting, there's, coding. Yeah, I'm lucky I don't have to do that, which is good.
That sucks.
But you watch some of these guys straight after the game on the plane, like they'll spend an hour doing a quarter, basically. So you can understand how coaches get burnt out as well. You heard that Bevo said a couple of weeks ago, that AFL jobs probably aren't as glossy as what they once were, just because of footy cap and people getting tipped out. So these guys feel like they have to really make their mark in what they do to be able to be successful.
And you're so right. I think like leaving the game now, you can really see how, not just like playing, but coaching especially, and we've seen what's happened late, you just said, with players and Nathan Buckley and all these things that have transpired, but it is such a full-on industry. Yeah. Like, full-on. Have you been able to, like, keep perspective that you probably thought you'd have when you left? Because I still think about times when, like now, extremely busy life, just doing things, working, family, friends. But when you're playing footy and when you're in those 4 walls, sometimes you just think that is the most, like...
Yeah.
Like, you just like you're worrying about corralling someone to the boundary, or how can we do this better? And you're like, in the scheme of things, that is the most irrelevant thing in the world.
Yeah. Well, for me, I guess going to another club after finishing footy, and the year that we all had last year was, it's almost a throwaway year for your work life, because the boys went to Noosa. I stayed back. We had Will, and then we left September the 1st when he was 5 weeks old, and we were gone for 8 weeks. So I kind of look at that year and think, right, you didn't really sink your teeth into it as much. Whereas this year, because of less numbers and whatnot, you do feel like you're working more, but at the same time, you understand, and maybe because you've been part of a successful football club and coming to St Kilda who have been stars of success, it's just like, right, these guys want it that bad that they think that they have to do it right now. And it's not going to happen in 3 or 4 months. It's not going to happen in 12 months. It might take 3 or 4 years. But as long as we're on the right path and building something that they can sustain for a long period versus a flash in the pan type thing, that's what I suppose where I'm looking towards, rather than just thinking week in, week out, wins, losses, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that. It's a very good point. And it's something that I think playing at Hawthorn, having that success, having sustained success, is something that a lot of people and players and coaches don't really have. But obviously Hawthorn have had that. Let's get into that later though with the Saints. But I think that it's, the insight that you'd be giving there would be incredible, and I want to touch into it later. But with this show, I know you're a big fan. I like to start at the start.
Yes.
It's a good place to start. And the start for you was the Leongatha Parrots.
Yes.
We love them down here. We're big fans of Leongatha Parrots. They're a beautiful team. Take us back, mate. It's a beautiful part of town.
Yep.
In Gippsland.
Gippsland, yeah. So small country town, about 2 hours as the crow flies from here.
Yep.
Not many, 5,000-6,000 people in the town. Mainly a big dairy area. Murray Goulburn's one of the main businesses that keeps the town running, and sport was all we knew growing up. There wasn't phones, there wasn't laptops, there was nothing like that. You don't see it often in the city anymore, and probably the country where you have to stop the car to let kids take their wheelie bins off the middle of the road, or watch them stop kicking the footy. We did everything: footy, cricket, basketball, tennis, mixed netball, basically everything you could in the town, which was great for me because country life's the best.
It is. It's. I was born in Ballarat, lived there till I was 2, so I still like to sort of have
Claim.
that country feel.
Yep.
I feel like the country guys are so much tougher.
Did your first car have a blinker on the left or the right?
The blinker.
Yeah. Well, this is what a lot of metro kids
What do you
don't
mean
understand.
blinker? Oh, they like the European
indicator.
car. Oh no, I had a
Yeah,
Holden
yeah.
Commodore. Yeah,
Yeah.
Holden Commodore. Yeah, it was Australian.
A lot of these boys have Volkswagens now, so they
No,
think
no.
this is the thing that you
No.
understand with country and city, that they think the blinkers on the
Yeah.
left is normal.
Yeah, no, that's not normal. I still, when I drive my missus' car, put the power
The
something
windscreen
on.
wipers
Windscreen on every time. So definitely country at heart. Now, fast forwarding a little bit, as you said, you played all your footy there, you're a big basketballer.
Yep.
It doesn't get alluded to enough credit though of your basketball career.
There's nothing to
Isn't
it.
it?
Nah.
Is it? No, there is. But like, how Troy, we had Max Gorn on a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
And we said there was 2 things that get said if you watch footy. Is Max Gorn used to like smoking darts, and Scott Penberry
Basketball.
plays basketball.
Yeah, yeah.
Jarryd Roughead never gets played into
Jarryd
basketball.
Roughead, don't need to worry about that.
Why is that?
Because I came off the bench. So I was a bench player in the Nationals.
Impact player.
Well, some
Super
would
sub.
say.
Yeah.
I made the numbers up. So, yeah, a couple of representative state sides growing up. And then at the end of 2002, which was the Nationals in 16 for basketball, where you have to do all the funding yourself. You have to try and raise as much money to get to the Nationals. 2003, I was lucky enough to make the footy Nationals, and the AFL cover everything. So you can understand why basketball lose a lot of players and AFL keep a lot, because the funding, we had to drive a bus from literally Albert Park all the way to Adelaide for the Nationals in 16, whereas Vic Country footy, you jump on the plane, get there, and everything's taken care of. So, yeah, look, it was, as I said, you play a lot of sports as a kid, and it came to about 16 years old where you said, righto, footy or basketball, and driving to Melbourne 3 times a week was too much as a kid. So footy overtook everything, really.
Yeah, it's hard to beat footy, I think, just in terms of that powerfulness and the pathway. It's probably second to none in Australia. But good news recently as well with Deladova looking to sign with Melbourne United.
Saw that.
Could do some big things.
Yeah, you'll go?
I will buy a membership. Yeah,
No, you won't.
Yeah, I will. If he's because I think it's a sign, but if he gets picked up, he's going to go back.
So I think it's a 3-year deal with an NBA out. So if he gets a chance to go back to the NBA, he'll take that chance.
Cool. That's probably fair enough, to be honest.
Well.
I think that'd be fair.
Yeah.
Draft day. Massive draft. Looking at it, like you obviously picked 2 in the draft. Was it always looking that way? Like you look at that draft now, it's pretty incredible how powerful it was. Some of the players got picked up around you, and some of them. Is there anyone still playing? Well, Buddy, obviously.
Bud and Eddie. Eddie was the preseason pick 1, I reckon.
Huge.
So we had our school graduation the night before the draft, which was back home. Greg Miller, who was GM of Richmond, rang and said, we're going to take it pick 4 tomorrow. So I was, pumped, telling all my schoolmates, told family. Grandparents got the black and yellow streamers, no worries. Travelled down the next morning. The draft was 10 o'clock, I reckon, at the old Melbourne Park. Walk in, pick 1, Delidio, going to plan. And then, Hawthorn read out my name, pick 2. And it was just like, well, that wasn't meant to happen. And then 3 picks later, Bud goes, and he's sitting behind me. And then 2 picks after Bud, Geordie. So I knew Geordie a lot, and we knew each other, but not as a close unit. So all of a sudden it was like, right, the 3 of us are moving from interstate, moving from country. We'll live together. We'll do all this, and we grew up together.
I didn't know about the Richmond.
Yeah.
So that was nearly done.
They said pick 4. So I was like, yep, no worries. Had known Delio from Vic Country.
Yep.
And said, righto, we'll hopefully live together with a host family or something like that. And that changed within 12 hours.
Far out. It's crazy, the sliding doors factor
Yeah.
of footy sometimes,
Yep.
and all those things happening. You look at that. So yourself, Buddy Franklin, Jordan Lewis in one draft. Was anyone else picked up in that draft, or was that just the three?
There was a couple others late. Tommy Murphy, who played 100 games.
Yes,
He went to
yes.
Gold Coast.
Great leadership.
Simon Taylor.
player.
Matty Little, who's now the runner and development manager at Essendon. So they were a pretty good draft for Hawthorn.
Yeah.
But as you said, sliding doors, like we could have been anywhere. Leading into the draft, we heard, I think Bud was thinking Hawthorn, and I think George was thinking Port Adelaide. From what we'd been told, Hawthorn kept their cards pretty close to their chest, so they played everyone really well.
Do you think, like, looking back now, and looking at that age, did you fathom? Was it obvious Hawthorn picking up you three, being like, this is going to be the face of our next team, or was it just like you just went there and it just wasn't even a thing you thought about?
Yeah, well, obviously not, because like Bud and I are 17, so that was, I think, the last year that you could draft 17-year-olds early. So I leave Leongatha, which at the time had one set of traffic lights. You move to Melbourne, you move to Hawthorn, and you're training at Glenferrie Oval, which is just, you're trying to get lifts there, you're trying to work out how traffic, all this kind of stuff, trams, trains. Like you literally had no idea. And you throw in the fact that we're all going to Kokoda too. Bud and I had to get kids' passports because we didn't have any. We had to get immunisations, and then within 2 weeks of being at Hawthorn Footy Club, we're over walking the Kokoda Trail in Papua New Guinea. So, whirlwind story, but great for us because you feel like you've bonded with the blokes. You'd felt like you'd known them for 6 months by the time you got back, versus some guys who had to travel interstate, probably do 3 or 4 sessions, and then it's Christmas time. So for us it was great, and the way, because we had all three of us, you felt comfortable when we're probably smart asses and a little bit arrogant, or thought we were better than what we were, which, Hawthorn, they were pretty quick to knock us into shape, which was good for us too, but also good for them, because they thought, right, if we've got 3 confident kids and if they can play footy, anything could happen.
What you spoke about that Kokoda trip then? What does that actually entail at Hawthorn? Because I know that was a staple for a while. I'm not sure if it's COVID sort of delayed it a little bit. But what did they do with it? Because Clarko takes the first-year players on these trips?
Yeah, basically every 3 years, people who hadn't gone go on the trip. So you learn a lot about the values of the Hawthorn Footy Club. You go there and there's a spot on the track called Ishurava, which has got 4 pillars: courage, mateship, sacrifice and endurance. And if you walk into the Hawthorn Footy Club, those pillars are dynabolted into the concrete there. And a lot of what the culture was built on was basically from Kokoda. So every 3 years, the people that hadn't gone, Clarko takes them, and it's a bit mental as well, because they'll chop down a tree and you have to carry the big trunk. There's sandbags. So they try and make you feel like what it was like for the soldiers back in the day too. You're carrying stretchers with 90 kilos on it. Because at that time when the war was on, some of these kids are the exact same age you are. So puts life into perspective too, and makes you understand how good it was, or how good we've got it, because of what so many people sacrificed for us.
Incredible. Yeah, it's crazy, and I think it just sets such a good precedent for all those young guys coming in. I know when Bolts was at Carlton, he sort of brought something across similar, where he'd take a few of the boys over to Tasmania. Yeah. Wasn't quite Kokoda, but Tasmania, and they do a bit of a camp there and do a few things in the cold and do a bit of hiking and whatnot. But yeah, I was always pretty envious of that, because I thought, fuck, it'd be good to get away and bond together. Something that's crazy that we, like, looking back now, is incredible, really. Like yourself and Buddy playing, I think when you're 21 years of age, you're in 2007.
Yeah.
Was that? I think it was 21 years of age. And from the stats here I've written down, Buddy kicked 113 that year.
This is in 08. This is 08.
In 08.
This is 08.
So Buddy kicked 113, you kicked 75, you're 21 years of age, and you've got Cyril as well in that team. Looking back now, not only is that like a big feat, but like it probably might not even really ever be done again. It's incredible to think, like, at that age, Hawthorn was relying on such young kids to be dominating.
Yeah, well, we're lucky in a sense, because we drafted Cyril at the right time. Bud and I, we'd been through ups and downs. I'd played twos. Bud had been dropped and been injured a couple of times. And you look at those goals, I think Bud kicked 80 points and I kicked 50 points that year too. So we've had over 350 shots at goal as two 21-year-olds in, a premiership year, which is just off its head. Now, did we think it was going to happen every year after that? Yeah, we did, because we carried on like pork chops after we won in 08. But I think you look back now that you're done, but you think, right, that was an unreal team. And, I think today that I would have played with 7 AFL Hall of Famers, including a coach with Clarko. Throw Burgoyne, Hodge, Mitchell, Rioli, Franklin, Crawford, Clarko. Like, to get, I think, that many Hall of Famers out of one team, and then you throw again the rivalry against Geelong. Geelong are probably going to have the same amount. So at times, you look back at that rivalry with Geelong, there's probably 14, 15 AFL Hall of Famers that are going to be on the field at once. Now, I'm not sure if you'll get that again anytime soon, but the rivalry, everyone pumps up the rivalry. You look back at it now, it's just like, how lucky were you to play in those games?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, and I think for me, like when I was really getting into footy with 2008, so like I went to 2006 and 7 Sydney West Coast Sydney. After that, I remember that was the big one was Geelong Hawthorn.
Yeah.
And obviously you guys weren't favourites for that game. And Geelong had dominated the whole season. You'd come in and had the upset of the week. You sort of alluded before, like, did you get ahead of yourself after? But going to the actual game, what was going into that? Like, what was the feelings going into it? Was it like internally you knew you could win it? Because I just remember that time it was very one-sided with Geelong.
Yeah, we'd played them round 17 that year, and Hodgie had his firstborn. So Cooper was born that week, and he tried to do a few things that probably not cost us a game, but turnovers led to a couple of goals. And we lost to Geelong by, I think, 2-3 goals on a Friday night at the G. Clarko walks in Monday and says, we can win the flag. And I was just like, mate, we've just lost to Geelong, who haven't lost the game all year. How do you actually think that? And he said, right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to tinker a few things. We're going to add a few elements to the zone that he'd implemented that year, and made us believe then. And because we were so young and we were soaking everything up, as soon as he said that, it's like, well, if he believes that, why not? Now, Stewie Dew had also come across from Port, who had been successful. None of us had really had any finals experience. He gets promoted to leadership group and says, yep, we can do something here. And Clarko always said you had to be the best team in September. Now, we beat Dogs on the Friday night in the qualifying quite convincingly, beat St Kilda in the prelim, and it was like we'd done what was required going into that grand final. And then everything just seemed to go right for us in that grand final. They changed the rushing of the points after that game because we had blokes who were kicking it from 30 metres out through their points just to get a rush behind. But, you look back now and it was just like, every team's beatable. We got Geelong on the right day.
It's unbelievable to think about. And as you alluded before, like how that sparked such a fierce rivalry since that. Like that game, was it Jeff Kennett or was it Geelong after that said basically we'll never lose to Hawthorn again? Or they...
No, it was Jeff saying that we've mentally got Geelong. Yeah. And that was... I think we'd beaten Geelong a couple of times leading up to the 08 granny, and then post that, Geelong just seemed to get on this run. Now, we'd get in front by 4 or 5 goals. Last quarter, they'd come back, win by a point. Hawk had kicked that goal after the siren. Jimmy Bartell kicked a point after the siren. And Jeff just added fuel to the fire. So... I mean, it took, 11, 12, 13 games for us to beat them in a prelim of all places. But, I mean, they're the ones you want to be a part of. You don't, everyone says you lost to Geelong 13 times, but it's like, but they're the games where you want to be playing in front of 80, 90,000 at the G each week, You don't want to be playing at Tassie on a cold Sunday or something like that,
That's what I was doing. It is funny, though, with that. So you said in 15 games that you lost 13.
Yeah.
But the 2 you won, one was a grand final, one was a prelim.
Yeah.
So I'd probably take that.
Yeah, well, not with the reviews and whatnot, mate. You've been through enough of those that it's like when you've got Clarko after about the 8th, 9th time and it's like, righto, boys, we've got to do something. And then we keep going a few more. It wasn't nice.
On Clarko there, I had a podcast with Xavier Ellis a while ago and he told us a story about Clarko nearly knocking himself out after a win once. Basically, I think he was upset with the team, it's fair to say. And Clark is a friend of the show, so he won't mind this because he's an alumni, he's a conglomerate in there. But I think he nearly might have misplaced his jaw.
He's done a few things. You've seen you see the bit where he punches a hole in the G window. Zave, who doesn't move, if you go back and watch that vision, Zave he just deadpans straight. Looks straight ahead, doesn't want to make any eye contact with Clarko. He's actually tried to, when the drink bottles were in the 6-pack there, right in front of the coach when they're halftime address or pre-game, he goes to boot the absolute crap out of them one day, all full, so he almost breaks his toe in his suit shoes. The amount of dints in the Etihad and G whiteboards, and mainly probably because of him as well.
What a star. Well, he obviously knows what he's doing. After 08, obviously you win that, but as we sort of spoke about before, whether it's young players not quite recognising where you are, things sort of fizzle out a little bit. I'm not sure how you would sort of explain it. What took place, I suppose, in that 09, 10 and 11?
Yeah, so 09, we had a lot of surgeries off the back of 08 and probably thought it was just going to happen again. We didn't evolve as a footy club. I think that's when coaches were able to get behind the goals vision and marry it up with live. So, teams could work out what we were doing.
So they were only doing that then?
End of 08, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's when it started to come in. Yeah. Where clubs, if you look back at some of the coaches and us, they'd have coaches that would sit up with a handheld, or they'd set it up in the coach's box. We used to do it in a reflex paper box. We'd set up with a hole in it, and then one of these small cameras would be like looking at what your forward line was doing or what the defence was doing. So that was the ways that coaches got away with it back then.
Wow.
We came back with an extra person in body fat, so skin folds were high in 2009.
You came back with a
extra person in body fat. So all of us collective basically came back with someone, we're all carrying extra.
Wow.
So Jack wasn't happy. I think you've had Jack on.
Jack Russell.
Jack's on too. He would have told that story. So 09 we don't make finals. 10 we lose an elimination final after starting 1 and 6. Clarko nearly gets sacked. And then 11 we lose a prelim to Collingwood. 12 we lose the granny to Sydney, and everyone thinks that it was all roses. 13, 14, 15, but we had a fair bit of adversity to get through. 10, 11, 12.
And it probably goes without saying, how much did those 3-4 years of adversity help you then into the 3 years of success?
Yeah, we were very lucky that we traded well those years. So we got Burgoyne in, we got Gibson in. Lake comes at the end of 12, McAvoy the end of 13. So and Frawley end of 14. So over a 4 or 5 year period, we were lucky enough to trade well and use free agency. Bud left, Zave left. So there wasn't as if we didn't have good players just coming in. So we had some quality players going out as well. But yeah, there was times where the leadership group got up and said we need to change, and we're going to be the first ones to change. And there was a moment up in Mooloolaba where Luke Loudon got up and said, "Yeah, we've heard it all before. What's actually going to change?" Which was pretty ballsy for a young bloke who hadn't played at the time to say, "Yeah, mate, we've heard it all before. What are you going to do about it?" And from then on, it was like, right, if the old "do as I say, not as I do" type thing was probably the way that we went about it. And so post that, we all held each other to account by challenging the leadership group first, and then filtered down to the young boys, and they just followed.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that's huge by Luke Loudon saying that. Just step up. Fuck, I wouldn't have said anything when that's probably the problem.
Well, that's what a lot of boys, that for someone to say that who'd been there 4 or 5 years, and as I said, hadn't played a game, so he's probably thinking if I say something, they're going to say, "Shut up, mate, you haven't played a game," that old hierarchy system. But for him to do it, that was probably one of the forks in the road that made us become who we were.
Forgive me if I'm wrong, there might be some bits about this that aren't correct, but is it right in saying through that period as well that obviously we allude to how many stars are in that team? Yourself, Lewis, Franklin, Cyril, all these players who are dominant.
Yep.
That the Hawthorn higher ups with Clarko and maybe someone else on the board actually took you guys away and had a chat about what was going to happen in the next 5 years in terms of contracts and offers, and saying, look, you're definitely worth more than what you are at other clubs, but if you trust us and stick fat, we could be on the verge of something special.
Yep, that happened quite early. That happened end of 07, 08.
So it was before 08?
Might have been at the end of 08 but they took us to Sorrento for a night, maybe a mini camp or whatnot, and they had basically the core group of blokes between 20 and 23, 24 years old, and said, right, if you guys want to stick together, you're going to, one, have to take less, because as you said, contracts are going to come, you're going to get all these offers, but Clarko's big thing was, if you stick together and win flags, you'll get looked after post-footy, which, I sit here and I'm living that, because you've got 4 premierships next to your name, you get job opportunities and get offers, whereas if you come out of the game with 250 games and no premierships, who are they going to pick as a footy club, to
100%.
So that was the one thing that stuck in our mind, and all of us got opportunities or offers to go elsewhere, but it was like, well, why would we when we can keep winning? And then eventually, funnily enough, all of them had gone somewhere else anyway. But we stuck together and won flags, and that's why you see a lot of these blokes having jobs. Geordie's in the media, Mitch is going to be a senior coach, Hodgie's up in Brisbane on Channel 7, Zave's doing his thing. So there's a lot of Hawthorn flavour pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, it is pretty fascinating. I think if you look at history as well, it's a harsh thing, but it's also a fair thing in a way. But to sort of have immortality in footy, you need premierships.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good players that unfortunately, they're still doing incredible things. But you can win Brownlows and whatnot, but unless you win flags, it doesn't sort of cross over as much as you'd hope.
Well, because you're always brought back to the footy club because you've got reunions. Like we've got a reunion every 5 years for the rest of our life, no matter what. Whereas, so that's a reason
You'd
to
get
come
sick
back.
of your reunions at this stage.
We've only had one.
Okay.
So, but whereas other clubs probably have to, through past players functions or past players groups, that's how they organise their catch up. So we're lucky in a sense that we're forced to do it. Whereas I'm not sure you would do it if you weren't.
I'm in the Giants past players group. There's about 7 of us.
What about the Blues?
No, nothing in the Blues
Nothing yet?
Nah, but there is a very strong spirit of Carlton at Carlton, but obviously goes without saying it's a lot older demographic. And it's of the glory days of Carlton. It's not the latest, which is sad because that's why you do play footy and those friendships and whatnot. Those flags, the three-peat we spoke about with Clarko when he came in, he said a really pivotal moment in, I suppose, Hawthorn's culture and the success of finals footy was in 2012, I think, against the Swans when he got to swear at Sam Mitchell. And his words, not mine, played somewhat of quite a selfish game. And the next year after that, they had some big words about that, and I'm not sure if it was publicly in the team or how it worked, but the next year after that against the Fremantle, it pretty much, he played a very selfless game, had maybe 15 kicks, papers said he was shit house. But it really transpired and made the team. Yeah, it
wasn't just Mitch. Like Mitch, because of who he is and his status, that's the one that gets brought up. But I remember then the review of 2012, sitting there and watching every goal behind the goals, and then they rewind it. And so you're sitting there, you just slumped in your seat really, because you know your name's going to come up. You know that you're the one that's cost the team goals here or there. I played a crap one. I only kicked 3 points in 12. I was no good. And so you've kind of, once you lose one as well, it's like, I don't want to ever have that feeling again, ever, So you understand you have to sacrifice more for the team. Obviously that at that camp where Sticks Loudon spoke about us stepping up as well, that was almost the catalyst. You don't wish you have to go through a losing grand final to change, but for us to get better as a footy club, that needed to happen. Now, Mitch was one that, Clarko said it and all the boys have said it. He tried. I think he played one of his better grand finals out of the 5 where against that game in Sydney, but he throws the ball back to McVeigh, costs us 50, they kick a goal, and it looks like we're just kick chasing and trying to bump up our stats. So he's one that, at the time would have been livid, but 3 years after that, he's played unreal. And yes, he might not have got a Norm Smith, but he's played bloody well in 3 grand finals as well.
Yeah, it's massive. And like you said, look where it sort of got him now.
Yeah.
If he had had one flag, he is held in the same regard.
Yeah.
With the something that I've never really, I played in under 15s grand final. It's still one of my highlights. But I think a big thing for me is I don't really watch a lot of footy anymore, but I always watch finals.
Yeah.
Because it's a different game. And I think the nuances in games are my favourite part, where I suppose when you've been in the 4 walls of a club and there's big game, like in every grand final or every final, there's big moments that you go, that the external might not know about. It might not even be on screen. It might be a role played or something that happens where you go, fuck, that saved us. Does anything stand out to you in those 3 grand finals?
They're all different, really. You said we went, out of the 5 grand finals, we weren't favourite for 4, and it's the 4 that we've won. So, the Geelong one was obvious, but Freo had this amazing pressure side that supposedly were going to, just make us jump in that grand final. Sydney were the team to beat, and West Coast had beaten us 3 weeks before the grand final. So going into them, it was like we were quietly confident because, we'd been there before, we'd experienced it all. We knew what to do with all the new players that were experiencing grand final week. The things you go past, you can't go past is Cyril's first basically quarter and a half in 15, Hodgie's goals. The game against Sydney, I think, is the best game we've ever played as a team. just from start to finish. You look at it and it's just like everything that we could have prepared for worked, and the way that the ball bounced that day was just everything was just in our favour. So I haven't really gone back and watched them. You watch them with the recalls and whatnot when you have to do it, but I'm pretty good with memory of what happened within game, so I don't have to watch it too much. But I'm just, you just look forward to the catching up now, because now that you're gone, you don't have that day-to-day feel of what it's like in the locker room. You don't have the banter in the spa or the steam room, or even just little things like road trips with the boys, and when you go interstate and you bond that little bit more, or after a win interstate and you're playing stupid songs in the change rooms and all belting it out at the top of your lungs. Like stuff like that you go back now and it's just like you take it for granted, because, footies, I was lucky enough 15 years, but if you get to 100, it's 15% of your life.
Oh, I think seeing careers like a lot of the Hawthorn guys like yourself has sort of, I think, made it look a lot easier than it is for a lot of people. Like you go through and play X amount of games and win 4 flags. It just doesn't happen. No, it's not something that happens. No. Once in a generation, really. So it is honestly a credit to yourself and the team that have done it. But one thing I would think about with the grand final as well, and love, honoured to sit here and talk to you about this, is how do you prepare, like, going into that? Because I think about it now, talking about it gets me anxious. Like, I'm feeling sick, like, with anxiety, thinking about that, like, how nervous I would be, that nervous energy. Did it get easier doing it, or did you? It did? Because the one thing that Dewey said is, and Clarko both, because he was a part of it, is grand final week's totally different to any other week. The commitments, the parade, training, everything like this. Like Waverley, best of times you might have 10 people watching training. Grand final week, you got 10,000 people bussing in from all the bus stops. The parade on the Friday, just things that and so you can shut it off and not enjoy it. But then if you never get a chance to be back there again, you can't say, well, I've experienced grand final week. So every grand final week, it's like, just soak it in. Just take it all in, because who knows if you're ever going to get back here again. Clarko we're never allowed to wear sunnies in the parade or every time we're on stage. So, like, little things that, they're wearing sunnies, we're going to beat them. Like, little things like that you'd think. Is it the long sleeve factor as well a little bit?
Yeah. So that kind of stuff, like, you'd think, we've got them.
I love those hidden, like, messages that he does. And I've got one that I've always wanted to, actually would be worth asking you about, is, like, there's the shorts thing that he did in the snow. Yep. To, like, send a message it's not cold. Sunnies is one that we've picked up today. Yep. And the no long sleeves and jumpers. There was one that Bolts did once. And I really like this. Didn't work, but it was great. Actually, I think it might have worked. I can't remember. Right. But I remember one day we rocked up to, we're in Gold Coast and we're about to play Gold Coast over there. And every assistant coach walked up and they were in a suit. And I was like, what the hell? Like, this is so weird. Like, why are you guys in suits? And everyone, like, no one knew what was going on. He goes, why do you think we're in suits? He's like, this is a business trip. And I was like, fuck, that's so smart. I'm playing table tennis, like, the whole time, thinking I'm on holiday in Gold Coast, like, having, day off, play golf, go for a swim, go to the beach. And he's like, this is a fucking business trip. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Well, you remember the one where he took the phones off us in Sydney as well?
No.
So we got the Intercontinental in Sydney, and meeting room, everyone, phones in. You get them back after we win. So we were in Sydney for the night. The next day, you had 10 minutes to ring your partner or your wife and say phones are going in. We get them back after the game. So, because shut it out, we're here to do a job, then we'll go home. So you can imagine the boys. Yeah. So phones are off, hand them in. So blokes are probably trying to ring their partners and wives through the hotel room phone. But that was another one. There was one where we're playing in Sydney again. It was out at ANZ, and he walks in like a guard at Buckingham Palace, like whole kit, the black hat, the red jacket, and he's like, "What's the go here?" And we're trying to work it out. Like, we've got, like, blokes are probably trying to take pictures of him and whatnot. It was the first game that he'd coached without Hodge, Mitch, or Sewell, so changing the guard. So this is your chance now. This is your team.
Love that.
Go, like, little things like he wasn't afraid to try and motivate us in different ways, and little things like that where he takes a piss out of himself, but it gets a message across because we still remember it. Versus it's like, everyone remembers Hodge's shit speeches for games, but as a captain you think, I've nailed that one, and no one will remember it. But if you stuff up or say something wrong, that's the first thing they'll remind you about when you catch up for a bit.
It's fascinating, and I think even just on the Bolts factor as well, I've got so much respect for him. I know you would have had him there. He was. I've said this a lot, but him at a different club, I think, with players that actually embrace that sort of thing, would have been unbelievable. Because it a lot of things that get spoken about Clarko, and I hope he gets another crack at it because he will make the most of it again. Yeah, and I think he'll change a lot. Yeah,
well, I missed him. He came back the year after I left, so he's been. I think this is his second year. But when he was our line coach in 15, unreal. When he was Box Hill coach, unreal. So you've had him as a senior coach. Yeah. Obviously it didn't pan out for him the way he would have wanted, but I still think, he's obviously got a lot to offer.
We spoke about before with the way of staying at Hawthorn, you might have to take financial cuts to stay together and have success. After the end of winning those flags, was it ever in your mind to leave the Hawks or get taken anywhere else? Was there any big offers that came?
No, there was like one at the end of 2010, but I just agreed to a deal and manager came in and said, "Oh, this mob's keen, would you be?" And I was like, "Oh," they said they'll double it, and I was like, "Oh,
$2 million, that's a lot."
Oh yeah, because we were on that, weren't we? Because we were on that. And I was like, nah, like I'd had to move interstate, away from family and friends. I just started dating Sarah, so it was like, I don't need to go anywhere, and I was pretty, set in Hawthorn. So it was more towards the end when Clarko started offering, it was always a park or explore chat where he'd say, do you want to go elsewhere? Do you want to, like what he did with Jordan, Mitch and Hodgie. And I got the same chat, and he said, do you want to go to St Kilda? Do you want to go to the Gold Coast? Have some time to think about it. And it's like, send us a text. It's like, park it, and that we won't talk about it again, or explore. And it's like, we'll explore the change. So I was 32. I'd come back from everything, and I had what I thought was 1 or 2 years left of footy. So to go somewhere else and try and start over again would have been quite tough, I think.
Do you think it was at that time as well, because for the AFL world to see players like Sam Mitchell leave, Hodge, Jordan Lewis do these things, that was such a big shock, I think, to everyone. It was a massive game changer. How was that internally received? Like, did you think, what the fuck?
Yep. We got together at a bar with the GM, CEO, like players, and we basically just asked the questions: what's going on? Why are we doing this? We don't need to do this. Can we go for one? So that was the end of 16. So I didn't play all of 16. They were a kick out of the prelim. Vizzy kicks that goal. They're going through to a prelim. So it's like, why are we all of a sudden breaking it up? And looking back on it now, you can understand why, because we were old and whatnot. But when you've got such decorated players, why would you want them to retire elsewhere? Like, they haven't had I was lucky enough to get a great farewell, but we didn't get to thank those guys on field. Like the last time that they played for Hawthorn, they've all, bar Hodgie, they lost. So it's not a nice way to finish, I don't think. I don't think you'll see it happen with the Richmond boys like Koch and Rewalt. These guys aren't going to go and play for someone else. Yeah, it's just, I like the fact that if you've been so successful, why go elsewhere?
I like it. I definitely, if I was in that shoe, I think being a one-come player for me personally would be special. As I know it is for you, but I also think, in a way, it shows that the club was bigger than anyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing I did like about it, just being like, you know what, how good are these fucking players been? At the end of the day, it's
a business.
It's a business.
Yeah. So Jord gets 3 years versus 1. Mitch gets a 4-year deal, 1 as a player, 3 as a coach, wins a flag. Hodgie gets 2 more years at Brisbane. You're not going to get that type of money just out there day-to-day life. So you can understand if they want to look after their future, and I've got no issues with that. But selfishly, I would have loved them to all finish. Yeah.
Yeah. Be nice getting it all chaired off together. It's beautiful. I'd have that photo hanging. With Sam Mitchell, obviously went to West Coast, did some incredible things. Yep. They say they wouldn't have won the flag without him.
Yep.
I know how highly regarded he is as a coach. Obviously, the succession plan with Hawthorn's taking place now.
Mm-hmm.
As a past player there, being obviously good friend of Clarko and a good friend of Mitch, how do you see that transpiring with everything that's happening at the moment?
Yeah, I'm excited for Mitch. I think we've all got to celebrate what's happened with Clarko first. Not many coaches spend 18 years at one club, do what he's done, change the game entirely. So hopefully next year's a celebration for him. I'd like to hope that he finishes out the contract. There's going to be so much speculation. That's going to be the news story of basically the next 18 months is what's going to happen there. But Mitch is always, from the moment you walk in the door, he's just set on being a coach, I reckon.
Yeah.
He's got his philosophy. He's got his way. He's doing great things at Box Hill at the moment. So I'm looking forward to seeing some change. I think it's good for the footy club. Who knows what happens with Clarko, but it's probably time. I'm more looking forward to seeing what's going to happen.
It's going to be very exciting. And as you said, Clarko, probably the best coach of all time, really. And to think that he would see out the year, like obviously as a Hawthorn supporter, you'd hope that. But like, I think it's funny how in the media we're talking about at the moment that like it's out of Carlton, Collingwood or Gold Coast. I'm telling you, I reckon there's probably more teams than not that have their hat in the ring for this gig rather than just 3 other clubs.
Yeah. And look, would it be great for him to have a year off and freshen up? I think so too. Because then he might come back as a better coach because he's not going to go 22 years or 25 years straight. He's going to have a year off in the middle and then could be great for another 5-6 years. He's only 52, 53 years old. So Fags is 60, 61 at the moment. I think for Clarko, if he had a year off and relaxed, might be great for him.
I think so. It's pretty, as we said before, with footy careers, how hard they are to even get through. 8 years. I was pretty burnt out after that, let alone 22. Can't say that. But yeah, whatever it is, watch this space. It's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
I just think the one thing that will be pretty crazy, and I don't think it will be the same as what happened with Collingwood and Buckley, not in terms of relationship, but just in terms of the pressure, is that Hawks are at that stage where they're building. Yeah. And they're going to be, I reckon next year they're going to be a seriously impressive unit. They've got 3 players. They've got John Patton, Tom Scully and Burgoyne potentially to fill contracts. So they've got a bit of money to play with of getting players, which, your eyes would light up being a to-be list manager. And they've got Will Day will come back, hopefully have injury-free year. And Sicily as well. Yep. Gunston. Yep. So it's going to be pretty exciting. I think it'll be quite a quick one for them to rebuild out of. So exciting times down at Hawthorn. Mate, winning 4 flags, a good part about that is getting to enjoy yourself and let your hair down at the end of the season. You must have done some pretty cool things. Now, am I right to say that every grand final party was actually at your house, hosted? Yeah. Wow.
No, so I'm in Hawthorn East near the G-Bunk.
Yes.
And the footy ground Hawthorn sits behind there, which is on Victoria Road, is where we all met at about lunchtime to go to Glenferrie Road. So I'm walking distance. Yeah. So it made life easy. So when you were talking about before about preparing for grand final week and whatnot, knowing the boys were coming around at Sunday morning straight after a granny, you don't buy cans Saturday night after the granny or Sunday morning. So I had to prepare during the week knowing that these boys were coming around.
So you're getting ready for a grand final, also buying 20 slabs no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the first, it did happen in 2008, but 2012 when we lost, that's when it started to happen. Yeah. And so after that, I was like, we'll just keep rolling this out. So by the 4th year, I'd only been in the street four years and we'd played in 4 grannies. But by the 4th one, we had kids doing barbecues with sausages and little drinks of Barocca for the boys before they got, because I'm at the top of the street. So some of these guys are walking up the street hung, get a Barocca, get a snag, walk in, and it's just like, let's go again. So, and you don't get a chance to just spend, a couple of hours with the 22. So to be able to just chill in the backyard, all talk a bit of crap, have a few cans. Yeah, they're the photos and whatnot you look at and go, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I could only imagine how sick that would be. Like some unbelievable flicks that would be getting around. Yeah. I'm sure they're privately stashed. Is it true as well, speaking to your good brother, by the way, he's given me this one, who's a great man, absolute superstar, said that post grand finals, there'd often be someone who would come up and give a readout of the paper the next day. So like, assuming that, would they be actually reading it like in the paper after a grand final? Often the player ratings are given. So someone from the team would get up and read those out amongst the group. Yeah.
Or the paper would come. And normally the youngest, which was Hilly a lot of the time, would buy McDonald's too. So he'd rock up with 4 bags of Macca's, spend $100. And it was just, you're just reminiscing and looking at what you've done. Because you really don't have time to reflect within the first. That's why I reckon the day grand final is so good. Because if you've got a night grand final,
night grand finals suck.
I understand it for the spectacle, but as players, I feel like days the best.
Well, even watching it, it's just not. I think they've confirmed they're not doing that again, but it was terrible to watch. Yeah. Even like you can't stay sober that long on the following day. Who was some of the best blokes to read out the reviews?
Strato, Joffa Simkin, who he played in the first one as the sub. He was great. But there was a lot of people, because Channel 9 would be there too. We had to kind of behave because we'd do the cross out the front.
Fair
so Hodgie would have to be in a state to speak. I would too. But if you have a look back on some of the vision, I think Strato's in a wetsuit riding a bike. Bud's hanging out the window. So you look back and it's just like, yeah, the boys have won a flag and just let them enjoy themselves.
Yeah, it's fair enough. You can do whatever you want. Off-season trips, so very busy. You're a big basketball, as we said earlier.
Yep.
Mates with Joe Ingles and Paddy Mills. So you'd often get over the States in the off-season?
Yep. Yeah.
Enjoy yourself?
I always wanted to do Oktoberfest, but that
I think
was always but that was later. So
a lot of
that's
players have the other problem.
Yeah. So I got there eventually when I was 30. But I always wanted to go to Europe and watch the soccer and do that. But yeah, a lot of the time it was America, getaways. Like where those two boys play in San Antonio and Utah, there's no real Aussie flavour. Like you go to New York or LA or Austin, where the Austin city limits and whatnot's on. You see a lot of Aussies where you could go to these places and really no one knows you. So,
awesome.
And of course you get to watch basketball and get a bit of an insight into, what it's like as a proper pro over there. It was awesome.
The one story I've been told a couple of times from the boys is I don't know if this is true, it's unbelievable. Is it right to say that you were flown over in a private jet?
No.
Okay.
No, we've been very lucky that through a great Hawthorn fan at the footy club, Stuart Giles, he's Brisbane based. He runs like a little golf tournament over in South Carolina. So we get our way to America, and then Giles looks after us, and we've been lucky enough to be on a private plane and place. Well, it's true. In America, we've done it. Yeah. So
and there's more to this story.
Right.
You've been dropped in the middle of New York, and they've closed the Dior store for you.
For him. Yeah.
For you?
No, not for me. Not for me.
I heard it was you personally.
There's no way they're going to just drop
So they've closed the
So Jarryd Roughead's going to go from Melbourne to New York, and they're going to say, "Oh, right, come in, mate. We're going to shut the whole store for you."
So they've closed the store for him, but you guys have gone in.
Correct.
What was that like?
Oh,
Did you get anything?
I bought Sarah a card holder, I think.
They've closed the store and you've just gone and bought a card holder.
Well, mate, they serve some nice champagne and some tequila and whatnot. But yeah, like these are some of the experiences that a kid from Leongatha is never really supposed to do this. So yeah, very, very grateful and lucky that we were able to do something like that.
Is there any other pinch yourself moments where you look back and whether it was an off-season trip or just sitting there going, fuck, how did I get here?
All the time. Like when we did our, what would you call it? Fact-finding mission about trying to go and look at all the facilities in the world. We flew with the CEO and board member at the time, Gunners, Liam Shields and I, to London, went through Aston Villa, Arsenal, and St George's Park, which is England's training facility. From there, we flew to America, went through the Baltimore Ravens and New York Jets, and was able to throw in some sport. We were at Wayne Rooney's 100th cap at Wembley.
Wow.
Went to a couple of basketball games. And then I was actually at the game where Odell Beckham catches that one for the Giants against the Cowboys at MetLife. So that was all in one trip. So, you're a country boy. You're at MetLife Stadium watching Odell Beckham make arguably the greatest catch in NFL history. That's not supposed to happen.
It's unbelievable. Very special. Yeah. Can't imagine that. You've done some cool things, my friend. Plenty of chapters that have happened. Plenty more to come.
Yeah.
Moving on to obviously quite a serious chapter, but your battle with skin cancer.
Yeah.
It's, I suppose, publicly, like even when I was playing this stage, it was big. Like it was really big. Are you happy to sort of talk about that and the journey you've been on with it all and how it sort of took place? And what is the earliest memory you have of it?
I know all the moments. Yeah. Like we played Essendon on a Sunday at the G. We won, played pretty well. The Friday I'd had this blister on my lip, just was there for a while. Looking back, it was there far too long. But I finally went and said, look, this keeps knocking. When I keep drying myself in the shower, bleeds a little bit, and they said, just go get so I had a punch biopsy done Friday before we played Essendon. Monday got the call. Yep. We think it's a nothing to worry about, yada yada. Monday, melanoma, you're getting it cut out. And I was thinking, right, we play Collingwood on Friday night. I'll miss that, have it cut out. I'll be back playing in a week. And our doc, who's been my doctor or our doctor since I was part of the AIS All Australian team in 2004, Michael McDeasy, he said, "Nah, you're in tomorrow." And I was like, "What do you mean?" It's like, it's not that bad. And I remember they said the plastic surgeon who did it, who, funnily enough, I had one cut out on Monday. Nothing bad, but every spot now that he sees, he's just like, I'll just take it out. So he said, you're going to have a quarter of your bottom lip cut out. So, and because normal ones you see on your back and legs, they spread, this one grew like a carrot, so it grew down. So that's why they had to cut like a V out of your lip, I guess. And I remember going into surgery, I remember him standing in the corner and it's like, oh, you're just looking at the scans and whatnot to prepare. He's like, no, I'm just doing a playlist for the surgery. And I was like, you're either that confident and comfortable that you know what you're doing, and I'm thinking, mate, you're about to chop my face. Come on.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, do you need me to shave? Nah, I'll line your beard all up. No worries. So Arnold, who's the plastic surgeon who did it, great. Still see him all the time. These guys are, yes, doctors and patients, but they're now friends. So I come out of surgery. I missed 2 weeks of footy, and you think it's done. I'd been through, seen doctors, whether it be, do I need radiology? Do I need chemo? We'd had all the scans. Nothing. You're all good. So missed the 2 weeks play. Lucky enough, this is all the back half of 15. So play the grand final. Everything's good to go. Live life normal. Have a follow-up scan, nothing. So it's like, right, 2 in a row, that's good. Get married in January. Then I get told PCL in my knee, so I'm out for 12 to 16 weeks, no worries. I'm close to coming back to play, which is about May, and I have my 3rd follow-up scan, and I go in. And what you do with PET scans, you have you fast, you go in, you have a glucose put in your body, you rest for an hour and a half, and what happens is the glucose attracts itself to any tumours if they're in your body. It also now can tell if you've got injuries and whatnot as well. So it'll go to like a crack in your back, or if you've got a hammy or something like that. But I remember, and I used to have a week in between scan and results, which now I couldn't do because you've got a week of thinking time. Whereas at the time it's like, yep, had my scan, go in on the Monday, walk in, and Grant, my oncologist, says, how you feeling? I said, yep, good, knee's good, hopefully playing in a couple of weeks. And he goes, oh, we're in a bit of trouble. And I was like, all right, where is it? If I got a freckle that's just a bit angry, and he pulls up your scan, he goes, no, you've got 4 little tumours about the size of your thumbnail on your lungs, so 2 each side. And I was like, whew, right, what does it mean? What do we do from here? And you have all these thoughts go through your head. And I'm thinking, we're doing a renovation at home. I'm living in 4 bedrooms, or 4 rooms basically in the house. So I'm like, and I'm not to know what's going to come of it in terms of how crook I was going to get and stuff like this. But the moment, and I'm with Doc McDeasy, and he goes, what do you want to do? This is a Monday night at about 4 o'clock. I said, I'm driving straight to the footy club. I've got no idea what I'm going to do, because that's the safest place for me, bar home. So I jump on a punt road, ring Geordie. He's on the way home from the review. I say, mate, can you turn around and come back? And he's like, what's the matter? And I said, you just got to come back, please. And then I just broke down there. I remember driving all the way to Waverley, sitting there, and then I saw Clarko, Jack, Fags, Doc, and I just cried for like half an hour, because you're just scared. You don't know what's going to happen. Then George's like, all right, well, we're going to have to go home now. And I'm like, yeah. And Sarah's going, where are you? What are you doing? And I'm like, I'll be home soon, don't worry. And because I can't tell her over a text message, I can't call her. And then I'm like, I walk in, and Jordan rung Sarah's sister, got my brother around, because we were going to tell them. And then you walk in, and she's like, where have you been? What's been going on? And then you sit down and tell her, and tears and whatnot. So yeah, I know it quite well. And then from then it's like, right, what's the plan of attack? So Grant had said, there's a trial that's going really well at the moment. It's not on the PBS, so it's quite hexy, but it's doing wonderful things. So through some amazing people, Jeff Harris, the footy club, who managed to get some money to pay for this. And I always used to ring them up, because it'd take so long from me getting to the hospital and then sitting there waiting. But they had to wait until they saw me in the building until they started making this drug because it cost so much at the time, they couldn't let it go to waste. So I'd had a biopsy where they went in and got one, and just to 100% make sure it was melanoma, and then we started treatment.
That is unbelievable. Yeah, mate, thanks so much for sharing that. Fuck, I was... Yeah, seriously incredible story, an incredible journey that you've been on with that. I'm amazed. I've probably got 50 million questions on that, but one is, how hard is this? And even if you can go to, is the hardest part of it telling your family and friends?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So cried, ringing Jord, cried, ringing Sarah, rang mum and dad, got upset. And then the next day, because Clarko knew, so I rocked up for training and the boys like, you train? I said, oh, no, I've got some other things going on. And then I had to watch him train and then wait until after training to tell him. And I remember, you don't walk in, I walked in with a towel on my shoulders because I knew what was going to happen straight away. And so telling them, was the hardest thing, you do as a footy player, really, because it's not like you're retiring. This is different to retiring. So, that's they're the I suppose the times that you remember most, because they're when you're at your rawest and most open, I guess. But you need to go through that too.
How painful was the process with the clinical trial drug?
Yeah. So I guess you're a guinea pig for it as well, because when I went in, there was me and a guy who was, I think, mid-70s that were on this combination drug. Everyone was talking about Keytruda, which is the late Ron Walker had fought so hard to get in Australia. This one was a combination of two different drugs. So I remember the first time I went in, had it done, no worries. It was over like 3 or 4 hours of first treatment. And then I was lucky enough to go away in that break. Cam and I got to go to the NBA finals in 2016. So I had a 3-week gap in between each one. And so I got first one, no worries. There's only 4 treatments that you're supposed to have with this. Second one, I remember having it, and then the next day I was knocked on my ass, like sweating in bed, no energy, nothing. Like I couldn't, up until then I was still kind of training with the boys, and just that was my outlet really. It got to the stage where after the third one, it took 3 weeks to recover in between second and third, and I thought, right, I've got this. And then the third one, no good again. So what happened was my body was basically full of the drug, and it had started to turn on other parts of my body. So I had 4 different side effects, whether it be my eyes were inflamed, lungs were inflamed, liver wasn't working, and my feet, it started to eat the nerves in my feet. So I kind of said, look, I can deal with the others, but if I ever get back to playing footy, I kind of need my feet. So can we help us out? And that's when they stopped it, and I had to go on a steroid for a little bit to try and balance me out. And then we attacked the side effects with some other drugs, and by the end of... So this was between May and December, that all happened. And then December, they said, yep, you're in the clear. Like, you don't have to do any more drugs. You don't have to... It had worked so well. You'd had a complete response. And basically from December 16 through till now, I've had scans every 3, 4, 6 months.
Unbelievable, mate. It's unbelievable. And credit to yourself. And I can only imagine the impact. I think in footy and in life, all you want to do is have impact on other people. Yeah. And doing what you've done in footy, winning 4 flags, making people's lives and supporters. But I think the cancer journey and the hope you would have given so many other people going through this would probably be nearly more rewarding in a way. Like, it's rewarding, but in the same way you don't wish you had to go through it. Yeah. I've told the story. You go through the wards at Peter Mac, and people would give you a cuddle, or because I was the youngest. I was the second youngest by a long way. Like, I was 29, and you see a lot of people that are 40, 50, 60, 70. And then I remember another young kid that was in there, just maybe 20 years old. And you'd have chats with patients and doctors and nurses and whatnot. And because you are in the public spotlight, you don't have a choice to just do it in private. At the end of the day, you're a patient now. You're not a footy player there. So everyone was quite respectful. But at the same time, you were, I suppose, you had a bit of self-doubt because you didn't want to be that person that had cancer. But at the same time, for the amount of things that you've done now with it, and people you've spoken to and stuff like that, you happily will help anyone else, really. I didn't know you before this, but I think something that could be prevalent in the story is how much is going through the illness and also the birth of your 2 kids changed perspective for you, like in life? Like,
Heaps.
Yeah.
All you knew was footy growing up. Leave home at 17. At the time you play 12, 13 years of footy and it's like, yep, this is just what life, or this is what you thought it was going to be. And then you go through something like that and it's like, when Doc said, you're in the clear, I expect you to live to be a granddad. It's like, I hadn't even had kids yet. And when he says that, it's like, oh, this is pretty cool. So then having Pippa and then having Will, 2.5 years later, you understand that they're not going to, like, Will doesn't know that I played footy and he's not going to know for a long time. Pippa was in a photo on my last game, but she's got no idea that Dad was all right at footy. So to them, you're just Dad. And when you get home from work or footy, they don't care if you've had a good or a shit day. Yeah. So, that takes a bit of getting used to as well, because as a athlete, you're selfish and you've got to be. But I wouldn't have it any other way now.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, mate. It is huge. And I know you're a big family man, and you got to shoot off after this to go look after the kids.
People always say it's like, are you babysitting? It's like, well, it's not really. They're your kids.
Yeah.
So
just looking after my own family. Yeah, that's what you fathers do.
Yeah,
I suppose it's weirdly. What's next for you, mate? Everything you've achieved, it's been incredible. I can't see you taking the foot off the pedal. Is there anything else you want to tick off, or you loving your work at the moment? Just want to further yourself in that field?
Yeah, you're basically an apprentice now when it comes to footy admin life. So learning as best as I can there. I do have a passion for list management, whether, what happens with salary caps and whatnot this next couple of years, you've probably got to get your head around. But, you're probably still 4 or 5 years off that. Just, you've got to learn everything about the business side and relationships and whatnot. But I don't think, I don't know anything other than footy. I tried to do a landscape gardening apprenticeship when I was playing. And I finished it, but I don't think I'll be digging up holes and big wet rocks in winter and whatnot. No. So, yeah, I think now that you're finished, it's exciting for what's next, because I'm only 34. So you're not putting a ceiling on anything or saying, right, I only have to work to 50. It'd be nice, but yeah, who knows what's next.
With the list management stuff, and I know that's an incredible role. From my perspective, and it'd be interesting if you've had the same one, but it is such a tough role. Yeah. For relationships with players that you alluded to, because 10 of the players on your list are your best mate because you're paying them good cash, but the other 30 are either not underpaid, but they're either think they're worth more, and then the 10 don't even know if they're getting a deal.
Yep.
Have you thought about that? Like, is that something that's really tough? Like, I remember having a chat with Stephen Savani about it when I finished at Carlton, and we had this sort of embrace, and he's like, I can't be your best mate when I'm potentially going to take it away. It's such an awkward position sometimes.
Well, you're almost judge, jury, and executioner. So I think if you're honest from the start and you're not, because it's different, players are always going to be players. Managers are the ones that are basically the ones that you're fighting against. They want what's best for the player, and you understand that, but you're representing the club. So because I've been as a player and you've been through negotiations, you've got an understanding of what has to happen there. But on the club side of things too, you want what's best for footy club. So you can't stuff up a salary cap for one player. But I think as long as you're honest in this and you're not lying and trying to win everything, I think that's all you can do really. Because at the end of the day, players will understand that, not everyone gets 15 years and 250 games. So I think the average life is 4 years in an AFL player now. So by the time you come out, you can be bitter and twisted and angry, or you can be like, right, I've had a great opportunity, but it just didn't work out. What's next for me? Because a lot of your mates, if you get the 4 years, have done a uni degree, have done a trade, and so you're out on your ass at 22. What are you going to do? You can't just expect that you're going to live that life again. So I think, the relationships is key, as you said, but being honest with them as well, because you don't want to lie and treat that. Because at the end of the day, there's some kids, son. Yeah.
100%. It's a livelihood. Last question on that, mate, is looking at a list build now and a structure. What do you go for first? If you're building a list from scratch now, ideally for you, and it's worked pretty well from getting you into Hawthorn with the boys, but how would you build a list from scratch? What do you think is the most important to do? Is it to build the spine? Is it to get a good leader?
I think spines are key early. If you can get a good spine, you can add pieces around it. If you get a couple of key forwards, don't come around often. They don't at all. You look at the Blues now. If Charlie Curnow was fit, having McKay and Curnow together would be huge. People would just pay to rock up to see those two.
There's a bit of Buddy and Roughy about that.
You can say that.
Maybe, yeah. Are you happy with that? I was thinking maybe that was an offence.
No, it doesn't mind me.
Yeah.
But still got to do it.
They've still got to win 4.
There you go.
They've got to win 4 flags.
So I think, if you can get 2 key forwards, you can add smalls. Midfielders, the midfielders changed. Like Paddy Cripps is taller than me.
Yeah.
So it's completely changed to what it used to be back in the day. But I think if you can get some key tools, or whether they be backs or forwards, you can build around them for sure.
And just on this, I know I've said last question 10 times, but the players at the moment I've been, looking at, not that I'm a list manager, but you look at players for a long time, there's been like a bit of a starvation of key forwards, like since, you guys and that big, powerful crop of coming through.
Yep.
Now you've got guys like, obviously Max and Ben King, Riley Thilthorpe.
Yep.
I still can't really say that very well. Jamari Ugelhagen, Aaron Norton, and obviously Harry Mackay, Charlie Kerno, these guys.
Yeah.
Without picking Max, I'm sorry if I got that right. Who would you pick? Number one of those guys?
Charlie, it was amazing to watch.
Yeah.
And we're all robbed because of what's happened with his knees the last couple of years. But he can run like Ed, but he can sit on your head. He can kick goals. I didn't mean that. But
that's a good rhyme.
Yeah, you can use it. But he was... That night he kicked 5 against the Tigers in round 1 a couple of years ago. It was like, this kid is going to set the world on fire. So you kind of... Yeah, you're angry that his knee has flared up, but hopefully he can get back. But seeing Harry, as I said, if those two get on a roll, it's like Danaher and Hipwood and these guys up in Brisbane, like Joshy Kennedy and Darling over West. Like there is enough out there, but if you can get 2, God, they're good to watch.
It is. And do you know what's sort of crazy, going back to the thing before, is the draft. Not that I'm comparing these players, but you've got Harry Mackay, so Charlie Kerno, Harry Mackay picked up and Wiedering in 1, but it sort of was that 3 pick that was Bolts coming in. He wanted that type of thing going forward, which is a credit to Hawthorn's success on it. But mate, cannot thank you enough for coming in today. Absolutely honoured and to call you a friend.
Yep.
Thank you. Now, friend of the show. And can't thank you enough, mate. Best of luck for the future going forward. It's truly an honour to have you in for a chat. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dyl. 100+ episodes. You're doing some good things too, mate. So well done.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
No worries.
Thanks, mate.